Good evening and welcome to the Town of Garner Council Work Session for May 27th, 2025. I'd like to start off usually by saying it's a beautiful day in Garner, and today's not as beautiful as some of them, I gotta be honest with you. But we have a lot of beautiful people here. We're gonna get some great work done. Thank you all for coming. With that, the meeting is called to order, and I'm going to ask our Deputy Town Clerk to please call the roll. Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vance.
Here.
Councilmember Dellinger.
Here.
Councilmember Singleton.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember Behringer.
She is joining us remotely. She is joining us.
Yeah, I can't hear her. She called my name, but I'm here.
Okay, yes, she is joining us remotely at this point, and I understand that we are required to consider letting her participate remotely. It is a decision that's made, and I would ask, is there a motion and a second to allow Councilmember Behringer to participate remotely?
So moved. Second.
There's a movement and a motion and a second by Mr. Vance and Mr. Matthews. I'm going to ask if there's any discussion needed. If not, we'll take
Just remind her to bring us our gifts back from her vacation spot.
we'll strike that from the record, please. There's no bribery involved in
Please.
getting her on here.
Please.
He was asking for gifts, and we're not allowed to do that.
He's done it already once.
Souvenirs.
Oh, souvenirs, that's a different matter.
Souvenirs,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Dream
you.
on.
Okay, so all in favor of allowing Councilmember Behringer to participate remotely in this session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Now is the point where we adopt an agenda. I believe everybody's had a chance to look at the agenda. Quite a few items on there, important things to talk about. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Matthews, second by Mr. Vance. All in favor of adopting the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Hearing none, passes unanimously. There are no presentations, much to my chagrin. I love those presentations, man. Proclamations, visitors, photo ops, it's just fabulous, but we'll move ahead with some more important business. And it seems that this time of year, nothing is more important than the town budget. That's the number one item on here tonight. And even as we get started, I just want to make the comment that this is not a one-person job. This is not a 3-month job. This is around through the entire year for a couple members of our staff, half a year for a number of department heads. No one person can do this. No 12 people can do this. This is a huge team effort. We need all the help we can get with this, and we appreciate everyone's participation. With that being said, I'm going to pass this over to our town manager, Jody Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of council. Tonight, we're going to continue our discussion on the recommended FY26 budget. As you see, we are at the May work session part of our process for the budget review and discussion for council. Provided in your agenda packet for this evening are the responses to questions that council have posed either by email to staff or asked questions during your public budget work session on May 15th, or additional questions that came from the May 20th public hearing as well. Provided at the dais for you this evening also is a complete list of all the comments submitted to date on the budget portal. We have had a few more submitted since the last time we provided that information to you, so wanted to make sure you had that available to you. All right, so before we dive into tonight's discussion of the FY26 recommended budget, just a quick reminder, the recommended budget totals $87.4 million. It's a $9.9 million increase over the current amended budget. It proposes a 52 cents tax rate. This maintains the current tax rate from FY25, so no tax rate increase is being recommended. In that tax rate of 52 cents, 43.5%, 5 cents goes to town operations, and 8.5 cents goes for debt service. And as we've discussed throughout the budget process, this is a priority-based budget focusing on two significant goals of the council. One is the merger with the Garner Fire Rescue Department, as well as the opening of Jurgen Park, one of our signature parks here. All right, so for tonight's discussion, there's a few items we want to make sure we cover with council, and then open it up for discussion and questions from council, and then talk about next steps. So first is the follow-up. As I mentioned, as part of your agenda packet, questions and data and information that has been requested to date from council has been provided. I will bring your attention to one of the attachments that provide some information on both the merit and market adjustments by department area. And just a reminder, those are budgeted from October. That's when we do our merit rates. And then from January when we do the market adjustment. So that information is provided well with all the other information. Also, I wanted to share with you some updates on process improvements. This is the first year that we've used our new budget software to put together the recommended budget, to do the work, to do the analysis, and do the follow-up. In addition to using new software to do the budget, we've also been implementing new human resources software to help us manage all our human resources policies, procedures, all the processes we use through human resources, as well as payroll. And so as we've modernized our processes, this is the first time we've ever used software to do both of these things. We've learned a lot. Some of the things that we learned included how to realign and correct some issues that did not have the correct alignment in terms of how some positions were allocated to different budget codes. But we also learned some things about using the software. And one of the things that council had a question about in terms of the recommended budget looked at the group insurance rate. And I'm here to share with council, after further review of that particular line item, we did find an error in the formula using this new software. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that, what that looks like, how it's been addressed, and recommendations moving forward. And then in addition to that, because of the error that we did find in the group insurance formula, we have some new recommendations to share with council this evening based on some additional revenue. These recommendations are based on council's discussions to date, both at your budget work session as well as your May 20th meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Budget Director Sarah Warren, and she's going to walk council through what we learned. So Sarah?
Good evening. So I wanted to just start and talk to you a little bit about this line item in particular. Group insurance is the amount of money that the town contributes to employee health and dental benefits. It's important to note that the town subsidizes approximately 70% of dependent care, and that's just for health. So we do not offer dependent coverage on the dental. So it's just the health. Each of these pieces, which go into one line item, are budgeted annually based upon employee benefit selection. So with dental, it's an opt-in or an opt-out. With health, we have our traditional and our choice plans, and then within those, there's 4 different selections. These costs can vary year to year based upon employee selection. So we just wrapped up open enrollment. People can change their benefits. They can select higher level of coverage. They can select a lower level of coverage. As Ms. Miller mentioned earlier, this is the first year using our new system for these calculations, but they are budgeted. What we do is we take each employee and calculate, we have a monthly rate where it pulls based upon the employee selection, takes that monthly rate and multiplies it by 12 months. Each employee is allocated to their department, and so the amount that's budgeted for that employee is directly budgeted into that department. All vacant employees are budgeted at the traditional employee-only plan. It's important to note that this is the higher coverage, lower copay option. But once a vacancy is filled, the employee that's hired may select a higher level of coverage. So I mentioned that just to note that group insurance can fluctuate and will fluctuate from year to year based upon employee selections. Any questions about how we do that before I move to the next slide? Okay. So as Ms. Miller mentioned, we did do a deeper dive into the group insurance line item. What was presented to you on May 6th was health insurance at $3.9 million and dental insurance budgeted at $1.6. Further analysis indicated that the dental insurance appeared to be too high, and once it was corrected, that number came down to approximately $244,000. And as she mentioned, there was a system error to which the amount for dental was using the annual amount as the monthly amount. So it calculated the annual cost as the monthly cost. So this variance of $1.3 million is approximately 1.6 of the total recommended budget. So when we look at the new cost for the group insurance line, that total cost is approximately $4.2 million. Maintaining the 3.9, which we have gone through, and a number of us have verified and gotten our eyes on and have determined that it is correct. And the dental insurance line is now $244,000. So what are we going to do about it? So we have some recommendations based upon what we heard from council in previous conversations related to the budget. The first thing that we are recommending is funding some of our unfunded requests. These requests can be found on page 69 of the budget book. They include a fleet technician roll cart. So this is for the garage over at Fleet Services, and will support the entire fleet division. We have program enhancements for parks and recreation. This includes enhancements to athletics and other activities. It also includes 1 FTE. We are recommending the inclusive recreation services, which will meet the demand for programs related to special needs, with the addition of some of our inclusive playgrounds that will be coming online. That will be a beneficial position. Updating our recreation management software, which will be create some improvements to the current system, as well as increase some of our data collection. And funding of the strategy and data analysts to support innovation and data collection throughout the town. We also heard some comments from council on the street resurfacing, so we're proposing adding approximately $544,000 to that line, as well as adding additional funding to traffic calming of $100,000. Additional information on those can be found on page 140 and 183 of your book, respectively. So what are we seeking from council? So tonight we want to hear what your guidance is on the recommendations. Is there a desire to move forward with the recommendations as presented, including the FY26 unfunded requests, as well as street resurfacing and traffic calming? At the work session, we presented proposed fee changes for parks, so we would like some guidance on the approval of that. And then any other council discussion that we need to include as we look towards either next meeting or the 17th to adopt the budget and the budget ordinance.
Thank you, Director Warren. So council, this provides a brief update for you based on some of the questions and responses from your recent conversations with the budget, and some of the areas where staff is looking for additional guidance to make sure that we are meeting all the expectations of the budget in terms of council's priorities, so that we can get the process started towards working towards approval at one of your June meetings. So with that being said, happy to answer any additional questions from council at this point.
Okay, there has been a lot. Yes, sir, Mr. Singleton.
Okay, since the mistake that was mentioned to staff was found, how will that affect the multi-year projections? I mean, group insurance, I'm assuming, was plugged into whatever multi-year projections were. How will that affect them? Will they change? I know they change regularly, and a 2-year revalve, that'll make a difference.
Yeah, so the error did impact the future years, so those numbers will, your budget numbers will decrease, so next year's gap will be smaller. The projected gap in the multi-year model will be smaller at FY '26. And so we can certainly rerun that multi-year model and provide it to you.
Okay, speaking of rerunning stuff, since we found the mistakes over on numerous pages in the budget, when we determine what path we're going, if we're gonna fund any of these projects or not, or positions, can we get updated pages to put in our book? Because I got a lot of circles and highlights, circling things with questions saying, why is this, why is this? I mean.
Yes,
with
certainly
insurance, you're going through like, you know.
Certainly, we can provide updates. Before we did that, because we actually had a discussion about that, we wanted to present the information to council, get feedback and questions, and we can provide that information.
Thank you. One question that I was slightly confused on involves the street resurfacing, and there was an item in here increasing beyond last year X dollars, because some carried over. Will we be spending more or less for the coming year for traffic resurfacing than the year just ending?
Yes. So, Mayor, the way that the recommended budget is presented as of today, it'll be the same amount budgeted that we're spending in FY '25. If you recall, we talked a little bit about this at the budget work session. There's some additional funding that can roll over to FY '26 to ensure that we have at least the same amount of funding available for resurfacing. Because of council's conversation and interest in this, and because of the need that the town has, you'll see one of the proposed recommendations for some of the additional revenue is to increase that line item by $544,000 or so that we're able to tackle more of those resurfacing projects in next year's budget.
Yeah, thank you. That seems to be a very cost-effective program of preventative maintenance. I'm glad to hear that we are doing at least as much and have the potential to do more. So thank you very much. Other questions from council? Kathy, who? How quickly we
What?
forget.
I'm listening and I'm taking it in. I'm fine.
Okay, thank you. In fact, somebody continue to remind me if you see her gesturing or hear her speaking that we won't forget Ms. Behringer. Thank you. Okay. Again, there's been a lot of work done on this. There's a lot of work left to be done. We've had great input from council members who have an eye for detail. We've had great help from some of our civilian citizens who've looked at it with input, as well as ongoing review by all levels of staff. So this is a big, complicated project. I can't thank you enough for the work you're doing, the attention you're paying, the amount of time that goes into it. And in just another month or so, we'll be finished, right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Just a brief comment.
If you pull your mic down so Kathy
Thank
can
you.
hear
Yeah,
you.
so Kathy can hear me. I know she loves hearing me, so. Yeah, the group insurance error was 1.6 of the annual budget, but it was 14% of the new spending. So I think as we look at the recommendations, I think there's some other validation work council can do with staff on some of the fidelity. I think we can do that expeditiously and still get to policy conversations. And I think we can still pass a budget in time, in the time we need to pass the budget. So I think there's some more work to do, but I think we have enough time to do that work. So appreciate all the hard work of everyone to get us to where we are so we can continue to move forward from this point.
Thank you, and thanks again for the increase in communication among all elements of our community that has gone into this. This has been a real good textbook example of how we can all work together more closely and more detail for a better product by improved communication. So thanks to everyone who's been part of that. Mr. Singleton, you've been a big part of this. Speak at will, sir.
Really?
Yeah.
Specific question to staff on our portal comments. A question was asked specifically about budget for parks, adult, and senior programming, and I believe that got switched to someplace else. Did somebody respond to this lady, Ms. Smith, about that?
Yes, I did. I spoke to her directly last week, and she did note, and I think we noted it in your response as well, that youth and athletics has now become recreation and adult programming. Recreation and athletics, so it encompasses all recreation service and athletic services for all levels. So what we'll do is we'll make a note to make sure that that's clear, that we didn't cut the senior programming, we just merged it into another division.
Okay. Also, on one of the requests is the PRCR program enhancements, $322,000. Can I get some more detail on that? Because it's got one FTE is included in the recommendation. So what's encompassed in that recommendation?
So the total, what's included in it is it's really looking to meet the demands of recreation, athletic, marketing, and events that really after hours and on weekends, so that we're not able to provide. So adding an additional position will help kind of manage some of the increase demand on the staff. Do we want to bring Maria?
Mr. Singleton, and I would just add to what Sarah has mentioned. It's always a challenge to find staffing, consistent staffing for evenings and weekends, and that's when Parks and Recreation does most of their programming and has services provided. And so this particular request looks at not only expanding those programs, but making sure we've got staffing to be able to do that and support it.
Okay, follow up. And I got this from not last week's Park and Rec meeting, but two meetings ago. They talked about the waiting list for volleyball, girls volleyball. There's as many lined up to wait to play as that can play. And so is some of this money going to be used for possibly,
Yes, so
this is with
it's,
the county at one of the, I'm assuming East Garner, since North Garner is going
right.
to be
So
closed.
expanding the volleyball program, renting gyms, all those kind of things would be included under the enhancements.
So renting additional gym space is included in this?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, excellent questions. Excellent questions. Mr. Vance?
Yes, sir. I would say thank you all for the hard work and the quick turnaround on the corrections and things that were necessary for this particular budget. And mine go directly to the new software that was used. Understanding that when you change using a new tool or and new software, there is a learning curve in learning how the software works to try to figure out the bugs and all those things that are intricate and different from your current existing software. My question is, do you anticipate that this software will be used next year?
We do, and the system is far more robust than kind of the mechanisms that we've used before. So there's still a lot to roll out. Working with the multi-year model, we mentioned at the work session that we're hoping to utilize that as more of a dashboard, and this software allows us to do that. So yes, we intend on continuing to use it moving forward.
Okay, and with that, is it safe to assume that the learning curve will be overcome by that time?
It will be. We're going to meet once this budget process gets over. We're going to do a deeper dive and lessons learned and look for some process improvements in our budget process and roll those out as part of the 27 budget development.
Okay, those are my questions.
Mr. Mayor, if I may make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, with any new system, with the growth of our town comes growing pains, and that's an old phrase, but it applies today. And I think one of the things that we need to just keep at the forefront is patience as we work through adjusting to these new systems and adjusting to the potential for making some errors, but making sure that we fix them.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We have to keep that in mind. There's a lot going on here. If there are no other specific questions this evening, I do want to remind everybody there's a lot of room for other questions and other comments over the coming week or weeks. Our staff is available, our council members are available as we continue to work on this. I think one thing on our agenda says, are we supposed to target a later meeting is when we hope to adopt the budget. We have the choice of June the 3rd or the one after that, June 17th. I'm hesitant to rush this. I know we're eager to get it done. The comments from our staff on how we should select a target date or what's realistic.
Well, Mayor, I would say based on council's previous discussions and also any additional follow-up questions council would have, I think it's realistic for us to target adding the budget ordinance for approval on your June 17th meeting. And that will give us time to finalize any other information and questions and get that information out to council.
Okay, yeah, that gives us about as much time as we've got here. I didn't want to rush into next week's, which at one time that was our little dream. But are there any other questions or comments from council as to selecting what target date we're going?
No questions.
That sounds reasonable.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Is this the guidance you're looking for?
Yes,
this
that's helpful. And then it sounds like council's still supportive of the proposed Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources fee increases and rental increases. So we'll continue to provide that. And then what we need some feedback on, and we can talk about this more, get some guidance at your June 3rd meeting, is regarding the recommendations for the additional revenue, whether this is something that council wants to move forward with as proposed, or if there's other scenarios that council would like staff to look at. Happy to do that as well.
Thank you for keeping that open. Now, a lot of thought was given to that at the time that those priorities were set, but things change, time change, and we will continue a dialogue on how that sets up as well. We'll continue dialogue.
And I repeat it, and I repeat again, I've said this before and I'll say it again, that I won't vote for a budget that does not have some type of housing manager to address not only affordable housing, but also helping residents in homes that need to work through the rebuild program partner that we have. I know it's been recommended to increase the funding from $50,000 to $100,000, and we can create a position that can address some of the affordable housing needs and also help people in older houses who need substantial improvements made to the house so they can continue to live in their house. So to me, that's a must for the budget. We didn't, we can talk about waiting for data and waiting for this and waiting for that. The issue for affordable housing is a priority. And I watched a news story the other night on another town, I can't think what it was, and they asked them the three most important things that people ask when they live: housing affordability, schools, and amenities. Housing affordability was first. It was one of our sister towns, they did a report on them. It's the first thing I heard, so it's just something that has to be addressed. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. The affordable housing, the houses are still gonna be unaffordable for those who can't live there. There are people who go to the Hope Ministry at Garner Methodist on Saturday who have jobs and can't afford to live in a house. So they have full-time jobs and they can't afford to live in a house or an apartment right now. So something that needs to be addressed.
Here's you loud and clear, and I'll throw the floor open on this. At two different occasions in the past 90 days, the sense of the majority of council was they were absolutely interested in affordable housing. We're committed to the Affordable Housing Task Force that worked so hard. And we, at those two times, the council felt like we were following the recommendations of the task force, and in the order, the council actually approved the definitions. They endorsed the next session, which got information and input from the development community. They did that. There was a recommendation from the task force to do an inventory to see what we might have enough of or come up very short on which types of the various housing. That inventory has been sublet to Central Pines Regional Council, who is very familiar with this. They are in the process of completing this inventory right now. And I think that if I can speak for the majority of the council that I heard the previous two times, they are all for having an employee at this at some point, but they felt like best practices in government are to identify exactly what the job title, the job objectives, the pay scale, et cetera, would be before budgeting money for that. I'm also assured by staff that if a few months from now, council decides they want to add a position in this vicinity, there is money available. There is money available that we can fund that with, but we can easily do a budget amendment to include that. But I think it might be premature to fund a position that we don't know the name of, the focus of, who they report to, how much we have to pay that person, what their skill set is, and how the job will be measured. So I'm content with going along with the recommendations from the Affordable Housing Task Force, but do it in a thoughtful and decisive manner. But if someone wants to make a motion, get a second and take a vote to change that and do it more quickly or sooner, the floor is open for a motion or further discussion.
I just have a comment, and one of the things at our budget meeting, there was a list we put up there on how to have a successful budget meeting. And the number one was to be, I think, flexible or open-minded was one of those. I'm hopeful that this council will remain open-minded. I'm on the record as my position, and we still have a budget to go through, so that's my only comment.
Yes, I think flexibility has to be a key point of this as we go forward. Any other observation, Mr. Vance? I can almost see your wheels turning.
Yes, sir, they are. And in reference to what Mr. Singleton has said pertaining to the need for continued process for affordable housing, that's where I believe we are. We established a timeline that the task force diligently worked on, aggressively worked on, and looked at in great detail, and taking it pretty process direction and looking at it step by step. One, by looking at the definitions as been stated, because there was some serious confusion and different definitions when it came to affordable housing. And once we got some clarity there, we began to focus on workforce housing, and then began to do, as the mayor said, to contact, once we got to a certain point within our discussions and meetings, we reached a point where we reached out to the development community, because if we remember back several years ago, that's where the start of our true discussion about affordable housing began with the development community, realizing that we had a affordable housing issue, but we had not yet identified or defined it as it relates to Garner. And we are still in the process of defining it as to how it relates to Garner. We get the overall need for affordable housing. We realize and understand that, and each particular municipality have their own ways of addressing those issues. And we're still in the process of identifying how we as Garner are going to define affordable housing with the needs right now, what we currently have with our existing housing, and with the current other resources that are available to us, as to, as you mentioned, rebuild together, and also with Habitat Humanities and other resources that are doing things within Garner, and getting a better understanding that from the task force level. I believe that the deliberate method that we've used thus far has been useful. It has been aggressive. It has been well thought out, and to continue to follow that process will provide us the necessary need for the position to speak with confidence moving forward. We know we need it. We know we have questions, and we're still going through the education process of helping the citizens understand as to, okay, this is how we're defining affordable housing. This is the direction of it, and this is why we need to move forward relative to staff. I am a proponent of following the process. We are moving aggressively, and it should not take long for us to reach that point of identifying the need, and to do it now. I would just say I'm more of a process-driven person, and just allow the process to allow us to definitively say the need is there, and then move forward from there. I believe that also once that need is identified, we can act aggressively, because we already have the possible funding source available to get things up and running relatively quickly, and that if we take take it as deliberately and follow the process as we have been doing, then I believe that it will serve the citizens of Garner better than just trying to move forward with it without first allowing us to provide those questions that need to be answered based upon the study that's currently going on, to do that before we have that information available to us. So with that, I would hold on a motion now and just allow the process to go, because we always can make a motion to move forward with it aggressively, and then to allow this clear, deliberate process to run its course, so that we can answer a few questions and then move forward with that.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Other comments, input, Mr. Matthews?
Yes,
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, let's defer to Ms. Behringer, who can speak when we hear her. There we go. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I first asked the question about what is our existing percentage of affordable housing in my first term on the council, and that was when Mary Lou Todd was manager. I got a guesstimation from her of about 40%. Since then, I've asked many times over the years what our actual percentage of existing affordable housing was, and I was told over and over again, we can't determine that. We are now at a place where it is being determined. Central Pines is doing that work for us, and it seems reasonable to wait till we get the numbers so that we know which numbers to plug in where. I have a question of, do we know when Central Pines will have that results for us?
Councilmember Behringer, I checked with Assistant Manager Hodges. We're looking towards late summer, probably in the August timeframe. We were hoping for a little earlier. It's just going to take longer, so that's what we're targeting.
Well, we always want it yesterday. We're all in agreement on that. But I've been waiting for nearly 20 years for an answer to my question, and now we're about to get it. And I think that it would be prudent to wait until we get this official definitive number before we move forward with funding the position, so that we know exactly what we're doing and we're not going to be doing any walking backwards.
Thank you, Ms. Behringer. Mr. Matthews?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I think Councilmember Vance put it quite well, that we are utilizing the process that they were tasked with, and we'll let it run its course. So when we do get the numbers, we'll have good, accurate numbers, not speculation, so we can make a wise decision as to what we're going to do from there. We could have an overabundance of affordable housing, or it could be less than. I don't know, because till we get the numbers. And at that point, we have a plan B if we need to step forward with a person. But right now, I would agree with Ms. Behringer and Mr. Vance that I want to let the numbers come in. Let's see what we've got to deal with here. It's just a good business plan to find out what we're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have an informational
Let's circle
request.
back to Mr. Dellinger.
Yeah, on the Central Pines, I think it'd be helpful if staff could create for council a timeline for when that engagement started. I wasn't aware, if there was an RFP or a contract, or what are the deliverables. I'm not really clear on what the scope of work was and what the deliverable was and what the contracted deadline was. So it'd be helpful to know that, so that we know what we're getting. I'm not even quite sure what we're getting. So that would be helpful. And just as for data, you're going to get a snapshot of data. The problem with a snapshot is a snapshot at a point in time. It shifts over time. So you have to be aware of that fact, that it's ever changing. So, yeah, so I'd like to get that information on what are we expecting from Central Pines, and what information is it going to provide, and that be given to council. And we need to know before we get those results back if the contents of that is sufficient enough for council members to make a decision. If we get the result numbers back and it's like, oh, well, this isn't enough information or data for us to make a decision, well, then we've wasted another 3 or 4 or 5 months to get to a point where we still don't have enough information. So I think that would be very helpful for council to know what Central Pines is going to do and deliver.
We can certainly provide that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, good question. We don't want to just do a study for the sake of doing a study. We want some useful results And I'd like to just reinforce what Mr. Singleton said. One of the projects that's very close to my heart is trying to keep older citizens in their older homes, whether that's repair, restoration, whatever it takes to do that, how to restore our classic neighborhoods. We have a number of them here. I grew up in Forest Hills when it was brand new in the mid-50s. Now it's not brand new, but I want to make sure we're doing everything we can with Air, Cloverdale, Greenbrier, all of these wonderful classic neighborhoods to make sure the people who are living there, even if they're the second generation, can continue to live there, and how to keep them going, how to use the resources that we have. And that's my question. Are we going to focus on new housing for the 30-40% of AMI? Are we going for workforce at 80%? Are we going restoration with our classic neighborhood? There's many questions. What do we have? What do we need more desperately? Where do we start with this new position?
And what a coincidence that I emailed y'all this weekend on how to do that. That we take some of what we had in a former position, a neighborhood management position, and use that in an affordable house and have someone start it 50-50, helping older neighborhoods, working on affordable housing. That's an opportunity there. So, I mean, I put it in the email, it's public, if y'all want to look it up, I'll be glad to send it to you. Also, as it's mentioned in response to some of the questions on that Manager Miller talked about, if we wanted to add a position, we can use ARP funding. I would hope we wouldn't use ARP funding, one-time funding on ongoing expense. I wouldn't recommend that at all. I mean, if we're going to add a position, and maybe you said, staff said if we wanted to add a position, we had the money. That's a dangerous line to make when you're an elected official, but, I wouldn't use one-time money to add what will hope eventually be an FTE that would address both affordable and keeping people in older neighborhoods who may need some repairs done so they can continue to live there. And also, this person can work with those seniors where they can get reduction on their tax bills with their veterans and so forth. There's all kinds of programs involved that can help them, or how to appeal the value of their property. So, yes, I already mentioned that as a combination position to start out with, and then one day if it grows and you have to have more affordable or more with the existing homes, fine. But the problem's not going to go away. I mean, if we had too much affordable housing, we wouldn't have people out living in the woods around here. So apparently, yes, I don't know out there living in the woods. But anyway, all right, I'm done right now. You said I had all night. You gave me the floor earlier, so.
And I just have a comment kind of in parallel, and this isn't directly related to the position. It's more related to the timeline related to actually implementing any policies related to making any impact on housing attainability. And as we did the work on the Affordable Housing Task Force, there are a whole universe of program and policy considerations to make. There's also the structure of the oversight or administration or recommendation engine with regards to a housing board, how we structure that. There doesn't seem to be a lead on, since the task force has finished its work, there's not really that I've seen a timeline for having those conversations around what the structure of a board may be. Then there's the element of outreach around some of these policies and engaging the public with regards to this. And so if the current timeline is waiting until the data comes in August, and then you're looking at being into 2026 before we're doing any public outreach with regards to affordable and attainable housing. That is of a concern to me because that's over a year from when the task force will have concluded its work to begin the important community outreach element of the plan. So we don't have to answer the question tonight, but it does beg the question on how does this work continue, period, when we don't have a full-time person. And I'm pretty sure that the work whatever Central Pines is doing, if you had a full-time person, they could probably do it in about a day. I could probably do it in about 2 days, but that's a whole other issue. So that we have these questions around affordable housing and the timeline of a lot of other work that needs to continue to happen absent a person who is here to do it full-time. So again, it doesn't have to be answered tonight, but I don't want to get to the anniversary of the work of the task force and us having not seriously considered or even getting close to implementing any new policies to address the problem, which goes back to my refrain of urgency at the last meeting. I think sometimes in certain settings, when there is a danger or a problem, and this is not one that affects maybe anyone in this room, but a lot of our residents, as elected officials, what are we doing to demonstrate urgency, to help them? And sometimes you can't have all the information. If you're a lot of veterans here, you got to make decisions sometimes without all of the information, because you see the problem and it needs to be addressed, and you may make mistakes in trying to address it, but you make mistakes going in the right direction. You make mistakes of commission, not omission. So I just leave that out there, again, not about the position itself, but how are we going to move forward on making some of these policy considerations, do some of this public outreach after we've done some of those considerations, and have deliberations about what structure an oversight board or committee or organization would take. Again, we don't have a forum for that, and without a forum or timeline, it won't happen. So again, no answers tonight, but we do need to prioritize these other elements that can occur without the actual decision on a full-time person.
Yes, I agree with the need for outline. In fact, I think one of the key recommendations from the task force was to consider appointing an ongoing Citizens Advisory Committee or Advisory Committee to follow up on the initial work of the task force. That's certainly on the calendar, a lot of places to go. So this has been great input, great discussion. This is an important issue. Is there any motion to do anything different than what we're doing? Okay, hearing none then.
I would
Okay,
mention one more thing to staff. I touched on it earlier in the multi-year budgets. And when these numbers get plugged in, and if when a budget gets adopted, updating the multi-year budget and getting that to us.
Certainly, we can
Reason
provide that.
being, is because last year, what was projected for the next 4 years was a total of 11 cents tax increases, not including last year's. So it was going to be 4, 4, and 3. Of course, this year's budgeted projection projects 5 cents next year, but slight decreases the next 3 years after. So it changes, reevaluation changes it. We know now at 2 years it's going to change it even more. But I think it's important to at least have some multi-year projections updated to go by, because last year's and this year's are pretty dramatically. I mean, if you go from a 5% increase over 3 years, the next 3 years, from an 11% increase recommended currently. So it's important to have that information updated.
And Mr. Singleton, I would agree with you. And as we discussed at the budget work session, that the modeling that we do is sort of our best information at the time the modeling is done. And if you recall the current fiscal year, we thought we were going to have to, for next fiscal year, looking at the model last year, we thought we were going to have to propose a tax increase, but our revenues outperformed. And so when we look at revisions and enhancements to that model, it could shift from year to year depending on really what our revenues look like, but also the reval schedule as well. And so all those things are going to factor into what that's going to look like multi-years out and what tax rate may or may not need to be recommended. So it's something we look at very carefully.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews.
Yes, on that subject matter, realizing all these are moving targets, it's the best educated guess. Once you get your program to, you feel good about it, as mentioned, interest rates could drop down, different things could happen, fuel costs could make a big drop, number of things. Does that automatically trigger all of the numbers in those projections, if you follow what I'm saying, or is that something where it's 6 months from now, those numbers might vary a little bit based upon maybe there's a 1 point interest rate drop, or just an example?
So what we proposed, or what we described to you at the work session that we're hoping to bring to you at some point, is a very dynamic multi-year model that has a varying degree of variables that we can play with. So it would help us if a situation like that where the interest rates took a drastic turn, we could pivot and update our information based upon that information. We could, if sales tax just plummeted, we could then manipulate that too, and we'd have an opportunity to be able to manipulate those numbers and provide them to you in a more real-time basis. Right now, we're still kind of in this hybrid manual automated space, but we're moving to really creating a dashboard that and you bring up a great thing, a great point. Having a interest rate variable would be really important for you as well, as we can bring this to you quarterly, biannually, however frequently you want.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, and if I could just provide a point of clarification, Mr. Singleton had brought up the comment that I had made regarding funding for potentially a position that looked at and supported affordable housing. My comment was really around the opportunities to use the ARP dollars, which are COVID relief dollars the town received, as a way to fund it in FY26. Council had decided that one of its priorities for those dollars would be to support affordable housing initiatives. And so that was where my recommendation was for FY26. Moving forward, it would then shift to the operating budget for that FTE. So it's clear from a staff perspective that using ARP dollars would just be a one-time opportunity for next year.
Great. And the work continues on the budget. And we're going to have a lot of people with their head down for the next couple of weeks. We need all the input we can get. We've got a lot from our community already. Keep it coming. Our staff is available anytime. Our council members are available anytime for your input and suggestions. That being said, we've had a good discussion on this. Unless something else we need to talk about related to the budget, I suggest we move ahead to item number 2, which is next on our agenda. Okay, and this is concerning a zoning district discussion, and our presenter that we're very familiar with, standing at our podium, our planning director, Mr. Jeff Triesenberg. What can you tell us about the issue before us this evening, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Apologize in advance. If I feel like I'm looking at you funny, I have one eye that is dilated at the moment. So it's creating a little bit of a focus issue for me, but yes, so the intention here tonight was just to have a discussion about the R8 Residential 8 zoning district. And admittedly, I wasn't necessarily sure, what direction to go with. But I did want to put something down on paper to kind of get the discussion going. It's certainly been our observation in the planning department that, the R8 district is probably not being used right now by folks in the development community the way we probably want them to. We first kind of touched on this when we introduced a text amendment package, ZTA 24001, and I talked about that a little bit in the background of the memo. I wanted to just make you all aware that that package is still out there. We put it on hold for a little bit, trying to see where some of the state legislative moves were going to be headed. So that package is not dead, and it may be that we want to just go ahead and incorporate this into that, but I also don't want to potentially delay it if there's, in more of a sense of urgency to try to do something about this specific issue. So just wanted to put that out there, that we do have that one package out there already. And again, it's, I think some of my perception of the frustration is that we're not getting the density that the R8 district would really support. We're only getting densities that could be potentially achieved at an R4 level. We're not getting things really above that 4 dwelling units per acre. So certainly one of the approaches is that we could kind of put that district on hiatus, for a little bit if we wanted to. And in talking with, legal staff, anytime we do that, the preferred option would probably be to create and make the district obsolete, at least temporarily. That way it doesn't go completely off the books. We still do kind of need it in the UDO for the districts that we have approved. It's just easier to keep track of the standards that were associated with that district. And then we could certainly reactivate it at a point in time in the future as well. One of the other kind of quicker options, if truly it's really the density part that is a concern, we could also just draft a quick amendment that would put in a minimum density for those districts. So for instance, R4, we would put in a minimum of at least 2 dwelling units per acre, but no more than 4. For R8, it would have to at least be 4, but no more than 8. So that way, each of those residential districts would truly target the densities that we're hoping to achieve. So there, like I say, there's a few options we have for a little bit more of a quick fix, but we also can certainly wrap it into, keep it wrapped up into that ZTA 2401 package as well, and kind of look at it more comprehensively. But primarily, again, here tonight, I just wanted to get something for you on paper and then kind of hear a little bit more about what your concerns are, what your sense of urgency is on this. I kind of, in the recommendation, I noted we could have a public hearing as early as June, but it can be whenever you kind of feel that you want it to come forward as well. So there was no preconceived notion on our part as to how quick to make this. But again, just really interested in hearing more about what you all would like to see in this area, and again, how much sense of urgency. And I'm here ready to take some notes and answer any questions that you may have regarding this.
Thank you. It does bear some discussion. Mr. Dillinger, would you like to kick it off? You had some ideas about this originally.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would say as far as sense of urgency, I think given where we are with the budget, I think it can be put off until July for a hearing for sure. As far as it being rolled up with the other residential thing, I'm not quite sure what that timeline looks with the other stuff, so I think we can figure that out later. Just to speak kind of generally, there's wasn't sort of an intention on my part to eliminate the zoning district completely. I just think that it needs some tweaks, that it starts to be used in the way it was intended. I think there's a spirit of a law and a rule in a UDO zoning district, and then there's the actual, when it gets implemented. So I think there's a space for basically keeping it like it is, but I like the sort of, I think part of the trial problem is the overlap in densities with the R4. I think there's a place for it. I think maybe there may be a requirement that it include some level of commercial within it, or that it has to be adjacent to. It is written as a transitional zoning district, so it needs to actually transition into something and not just be surrounded by other residential. So there's just a lot of flexibility, and kind of welcome input from council and staff and other parties on how to achieve that so that it really fits the letter of what we were trying to do, and isn't sort of used as a crutch, a more attractive R4 with smaller lots and all that other stuff, without, again, like you said, giving us the real density that we were intending with that zoning district when we rewrote it on that UDO rewrite committee. So that's my only comment at this time.
Yeah, to that note, I will just briefly mention, I did reach out and try to canvass communities around the state. Got about 20 responses or so. I did find it interesting that there were a couple of communities, and I'm sure that there's some that are already doing this, but actually have implemented a minimum density. So I think that that is a valid thing that's kind of out there in the planning world, that, yeah, we have these residential districts, but are we getting the density we really want? So there were a couple of other jurisdictions that are actively looking at that now, and I thought that was of interest.
Okay, other comments from the board, council members? Mr. Singleton?
So your suggestion of making it obsolete, you have 4 steps in the memo here that we'd have to take. And again, as you restate for me again, it would still be existing for the ones that are moving through the process. So if the interplans already been approved, so forth. But obsolete would just take it off of there for right now until further tweaking, or I think it was you and Mr. Dellinger stated, trying to maybe derive what you want to do with that density, or It creates
Right.
minimum density, but at least if you make it obsolete, they're not using it in a way that in some cases it was not intended to be used.
Right. So I will say we do have, I think it's either 4 other applications that are already in. So those would have to be allowed to continue. But by going this route, like I say, it would keep everything on the books. If we wanted to reactivate it, it just would prevent somebody, once it's adopted, from being able to apply for it while it's obsolete.
And at this point, the current state of the law is that you couldn't take an existing R8 property and downzone it. So you would have to put it in a higher classification category if you wanted to take R8 off the map at this time. And as Mr. Triesenberg said, anyone in progress can opt for permit choice to have the existing requirements as opposed to new requirements.
You should take R8s off the map. Now, is that the same word as making them obsolete, or R8 taken off the map sounds permanent to me?
Right. That would be more of the eliminating this
Okay.
district completely. Obsolete just means anything that's currently zoned R8 can continue under the approvals that they had at the time, but no one could petition a rezoning to an R8 category.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So they would still be on the map, but that was one of the early issues we kind of identified, was that whole downzoning thing. That was going to be the biggest problematic if you all were wanting to just eliminate it.
All right, well, I based off the conversations we've had before and what you presented here, I think the obsolete way is the way to go, but I agree with Mr. Dellinger. We got the budget to deal with now. We can take this up after the budget has been adopted and so forth.
Kathy.
Miss Behringer, do you have a comment?
I would agree with Mr. Singleton and Mr. Dellinger. Let's wait, let's take care of the budget now. And then this is not urgent. This zoning thing is not life or death at the moment. We can take care of that after we finish the budget.
I see Mr. Dellinger nodding his head in case the camera's not on him. Yes, sir.
I just have a question. You say we have 4 loaded up. Do they fit our intent, or are they more, this could have been our 4s?
The majority, I can safely say, would be similar to what we've already had.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can't recall from your pending agenda where, I know I've been kind of probably hesitating to put that ZTA 2401 package back on, but I think we are getting close to a point where we can bring that back and discuss it. So I'll certainly work with the manager's office and see, because if that could maybe come back at either the June or July work session, that might be another piece of information just that would be good to absorb so we can determine how we best want to move forward.
Is that making sense to you, Mr. Dellinger?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's all general, depends on what they do up there in Raleigh, the timing of things, so yeah.
So I'm kind of getting the feeling from council that continuing this or keeping this open for another few weeks, get past the budget, look at this in detail. I have to agree with Mr. Dellinger and Mr. Triesenberg that zoning is one of the key tools we have to help us shape our future, and we want to use it to the best possible effect. And before we throw out this tool or make this tool obsolete or modify this tool too much, let's look real hard at what we're trying to achieve and how can we shape this tool, use this tool, modify this tool to reach the goals we're pretty unanimous on what we're doing, where we're going. So if there's no formal motion to move ahead, I'm just going to suggest we continue this to a future date and do a little more study, a little better chance to sharpen up our tools. I'm getting some head nods. Ms. Behringer, you just said to put this off if possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, and I'm getting some thumbs up. So,
Possibly what is the date? Is the second meeting in July? You had on here June 17th, which is the second meeting in June for a public hearing, so it could be, are you talking about maybe the second meeting in July, or you're talking the 1st of August?
Well, I think what I'm hearing, or what might be the best path would be to come back to one more work session and talk about maybe both the original bigger package and this one more time, and then decide on a public hearing date,
So,
if that sounds amenable.
so like the June work session?
If it's open, I'm not sure what all what all is.
Yeah, we'll have
planned
to
for
look at
that.
the agenda, but certainly either the June or July timeframe, we can do that.
Yes, I feel like we need to pass this on to the agenda committee who tries to balance this with all the other priorities, et cetera. So that being said, thanks for the great input. Thank you for the explanation. Thank you, Mr. Dellinger, for bringing this up originally. That being said, we'll continue this one to a future date to be determined by the agenda committee. And then we'll move ahead to item number 3, which has to do with the White Oak Roundabout construction that everybody's interested in. And we'll get an update from our engineering director, Ms. Leah Harrison.
Good evening. All right, so I'm here tonight just to give you a quick update about the White Oak Roundabout project, a project I know you are all very familiar with by now, and it's been a long time coming, so we're excited that we're getting some movement out in the field. As a brief overview, this is a roundabout that is being constructed at the intersection of White Oak Road, Hebron Church Road, and Ackerman Road, where there is now a rather awkward intersection of those 3 streets coming together. That will be replaced with the roundabout that you see in a conceptual plan in this photo. Brief timeline of where we've been to get to today. Originally, there was an intersection improvement study done for this area in June of 2018. We received a LAP award for this project in August of 2019. Since then, this project has been under design as a generic phase. So design includes the actual design work as well as all of the NC.DOT review that comes as part of being a LAP project, also due to the fact that these are NC.DOT roads, a real estate acquisition, and preparation of utility plans. So that has been ongoing for the last several years. Over the last year, we've been working on utility relocations. There was a lot to relocate out there. There's not a whole lot of space to relocate them, so that's one of those phases of a project that we always talk about, always takes longer, and is always more expensive than you expect it to be. But we're glad to be wrapping that up. And our prime contractor officially started construction on May 19th. We have 3 phases to this project. We're currently in phase 1, which is going to be fairly short, lasting approximately 1 month. This is going to begin the work in the area mostly outside of the roadway. So we'll maintain traffic on White Oak Road, Ackerman Road, and Hebron Church Road during this first short phase. And they'll begin what construction can start in the area that's currently vacant at the juncture of those 3 roads. Phase 2 is really the meat of the roundabout construction, and it's the most impactful because of that. So this is the phase where we will see a road closure. During phase 2, we will maintain traffic on White Oak Road. It will not close, but Ackerman Road and Hebron Church Road will both be closed as you approach the roundabout area. These road closures will be in place starting June 16th. We've timed this to begin just after the traditional school calendar is out for summer so that we minimize impacts to school buses and school traffic, at least at the beginning of the project. This phase is estimated to have a 3 to 4 month duration. We're hopeful it's on the shorter end of that, of course, but as we all know, sometimes you don't know what weather's going to do and you don't know what you're going to find when you're there. So our contractor is estimating 3 to 4 months. And we will talk a little bit further about what the closure means for detours and public outreach in just a moment. It is important to note that even though some of those roads will be closed, we will make sure to maintain access to any properties that are within the work area or near the work area. So none of the driveways will be restricted access from the street. The final phase is the roundabout will be substantially
constructed at this point, there will be traffic moving within the roundabout, and Phase 3 will complete the east side of White Oak Road. So this will have much less impact on traffic. All roads will be open, and construction will be happening outside of the travel area. This is expected to have approximately another 3-month duration. Related to the upcoming road closure, these are some important elements of our transportation management plan. We will have message boards placed out to warn travelers of the upcoming closure and talk about the detours. We'll have detour signs installed and road closure signs at all approaches. We're working closely with Wake County Public Schools Transportation Department and also the nearby schools administration directly to try to minimize the impacts to their operations as much as possible and to warn travelers. We'll have traffic alerts going out via e-news with the detour routes. And once that detour is in place, we're going to continue to monitor conditions at the detour intersections to make sure that we're not seeing any overly negative impacts at those intersections. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. But for the detour, we had a meeting the other day and tried to wrap our head around how we show all of this on a map. And it ended up being much more confusing trying to look at a map at it of it than it was just talking through it. So what we've decided at this time is we're going to publish detours in a written form to direct travelers in different directions, which routes they will take. And we can pull up a map to take a look at it. But because there's so many different directions that people may be going, it's very hard to show it on a map. But the detour routes will be marked with signage in the field. The main roads that will be utilized will be Bryan Road, New Bethel Church Road, Clifford Road, and out to Benson Road on the west side. And so these are all the specific detour routes here. One of the main areas we talked about monitoring the detour intersections will be the intersection of Bryan Road and White Oak Road, because there's essentially no way to route around this intersection without routing traffic to that intersection, unfortunately. And we are aware that that intersection already has concerns, and we'll have an upcoming traffic signal installed, which will be helpful, but it's not there yet. So that will be one that we're closely monitoring. We are currently talking to NCDOT's Traffic Services Division as well, to make sure that we have some tools in our pocket that they will allow if we see that it becomes an issue. It's hard to say exactly what the traffic patterns will look like until that closure is in place, because we will see a decrease in some of the through traffic because of the closures. And so it'll just be something that we have to continually monitor and have options for remedy if necessary. As far as public outreach, we have postcards mailed to residents within a half-mile radius. That's required for any construction activities, but also allows them to be notified of the upcoming road closures. As I mentioned, coordination directly with Wake County Public School Systems. They have a lot of buses that come through this area. Fortunately, most of them stay on White Oak Road, which will remain open, but they are working on rerouting the buses that will need to be rerouted. Because we're starting the closure after school ends for the summer, this won't be an issue until school starts back in the fall. So we'll have some time to monitor the traffic patterns under the closure before they begin back on their routes. We had a postcard mailed to Wake County Public Schools, and then coordinating directly with administration and the transportation planner. We have e-news alerts with the road closure notice, detours, and project updates. And then we also have the project website that's being updated so that people have a place to go to find additional information. Overall, the goals of all of this are to really focus on public outreach and provide as much information to people as possible. Continue to monitor the traffic conditions to make sure that we are not creating too inconvenient of a situation. It's never not going to be inconvenient to do major road construction, but we want to make sure that we're not creating a safety issue. And ultimately deliver a successful roundabout while keeping safety in mind. And that is really all I had for you, but I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Very impressive indeed. Questions, comments from council? We'll start with Mr. Transportation, Mr. Vance.
Long time coming, no questions.
Yeah, just to sort of mention preemptively, looking at Bryan Road. What is sort of the timeline for like the worst case scenario? That road closes, and then the next day that traffic on Bryan Road is backed up all the way back as far as the eye can see. How soon is it going to take to, and what would the mitigation options be for Bryan Road and White Oak Road?
Sure. So a couple things we're looking at. We've talked to NCDOT about potentially a temporary traffic signal in that location. We also mentioned a temporary three-way stop. I think that's probably a less practical approach than the traffic signal, because we'd probably then back up traffic on White Oak too much. We considered a detour route to the traffic signal at Hillendale because there is a signal there now, but we really don't want to route traffic through neighborhood streets either. So those are some of the items that we're looking at. I think in the time, because we deferred the closure by a couple of weeks to coincide with the end of the school year, that also gives us a little bit of time to work through those permissions with traffic services. So we're hopeful if something like a temporary traffic signal is an option and they're evaluating the traffic in the area to see that we hopefully will have those answers before it begins.
Before
the closure begins.
Okay. Yeah, because, just, I'd hate just closed, and all of a sudden it's like slammed for 2 weeks until we're like trying to get something done. So
Right.
yeah, that's good that y'all are planning ahead like that. Excellent.
Mr. Singleton.
So we're going to close, the detours are going to start in the middle of June.
Correct.
So you'll have 2 months before, it said that was going to be about a 4-month process. 2 months with school closed, school not being open. So how long, I know this one time was a 10 or 12-month project, but starting in June when they did the detours, how, I think I added 4, 4, and 3 on here. Is that right? There's 3 to 4 months. Phase 1 was, well, this is when the phase 1's can close. So 3 to 4 months, so we're talking 5 to 6 months.
Yeah, right. So technically our end of contract time is in March. But based on the contractor's current estimates of time, we look like we could potentially finish ahead of that, understanding that we're also heading into a rainy season and the cold season, and that can all affect pavement work and everything. But we're hopeful that the contract time is ample time to finish.
So based on 3 to 4 months into 1 month or 6 months, it should be done by the end of the year.
Yes,
But the contract goes for
Ideally.
next March.
correct.
Okay. All right, just wanted to clarify. So when it starts, we can tell people it'll maybe be about a 6-month process. Guesstimate.
Right. Yeah, and the, we'll at least be looking at completing this major portion of the work, which is phase 2, I would say within, even conservatively, that 5 or 6 months. And then the last portion, although there'll still be work going on, will be a much lesser impact to traffic because they'll be working outside of the travel lanes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And excuse me, Miss Behringer, I skipped over you because your picture's in front of me and your chair is to the right of me, but it's your turn now.
Okay. Well, I'm just really glad to see this project finally coming to existence. I'm always amazed at how well roundabouts manage the traffic in those areas, and so I'm looking forward to smooth ride once it's finished, and that relief for all the traffic in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews.
I'm just glad to see you get it done. I had to be down Old States Road and they're getting ready to do that roundabout down there at, in the sharp curve down there. So they're already moving utilities and what have you. And so a lot of roundabouts being built. So hopefully this will move and the weather don't slow things down.
Yes, we hope so.
Thank you. And I want to go on record as number one, asking all of our citizens for your patience. Please try to understand how this is going to impact you and your drive daily. Stay aware for the suggestions, the detours. Please try to think ahead. I know we usually don't believe it's happening until we see the road closed, but talk with your neighbors, talk with our staff, try to be prepared. And second of all, I want to commend Ms. Harrison and her whole team on this project. It's not quite as costly as the 540 Turnpike, but in some ways, it's more complicated. Nobody was driving on 540 while they were building it. Everybody wants to drive through this the whole time you're working on it. It's like open heart surgery. The circulation has to keep going. You can't just cut this off, close it all out for the length of the period. You have to work while the circulation is still going on. So my hats are off to you. Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions related to this? Anything else you'd like to add, Ms. Harrison?
I don't have anything else.
Well, we look
Thank you
forward
for your
to-
time.
We look forward to driving around the roundabout. Thank you
Yeah,
very
we'll
much.
have a parade.
Thank you. That being said, we'll move right along to manager reports.
Yes, Mayor, before you today is, first item is your pending agenda. So if you'll look at your agenda packet, this is when we'll be reviewing your meetings for June, what we know right now. Looking ahead to your June 3rd regular meeting, we have a consent item regarding a drone contract for the police department. We're actually going to move that to the June 17th meeting, so you'll see that later on in June. We've got 2 public hearings, one in annexation for 500 to 600 Waterfield Ridge Place, and then a residential SUP threshold modification coming back to council for a public hearing. Under old new business, you'll see we had budget approval tentative there. Based on tonight's discussion, we will move that to your June 17th meeting. But we will provide a legislative update. There's been lots of twists and turns and movement at the General Assembly level, and we want to make sure we update council on the town's initiatives, but any other bills that potentially may impact the town as well. Looking ahead to your June 17th meeting, we've got a few items under consent, including very excited about awarding our bid for our Garner Recreation Center playground that's going to be built. And then we have an annexation for Homestead at Bryan Farm. We've got 2 public hearings. The first is Creech Road Homes, and then I just mentioned the SUP, a different zone drone project. Amazon will be coming forth with an SUP request for their drone project, lots of drones in the area. Looking ahead to the old new business, looking at Renmore Pines, potential approval, and then moved your approval of the FY26 budget. And then looking ahead to the June 24th work session, we just have some standing reports at this time. This will be dependent upon other discussions that we have throughout the month if we need to move some things there as well. So this just gives you the highlights of what we anticipate now, but as council knows, things change throughout the month process, and we'll be adding some things to the agenda in June. Happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Any questions of the town manager at this point?
No questions.
Okay.
All right. Second item under reports this evening is review of our development activity map, and I'm going to ask Mr. Triesenberg if you will come up. It's been a few months since we've pulled up the map and sort of walked council through some of the new additions. So we have that before you. In addition, there's a handout that was provided at your seat at the dais that gives you some additional information and where to find these particular projects on the map. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you. Yes, so Ms. Joseph, our Assistant Planning Director, is going to be, has graciously agreed to kind of take over the responsibility for preparing this on a monthly basis. And she did go back just to the beginning of the year to kind of make sure that we weren't missing anything. There are a couple I know that we have talked about before, but I will just kind of take you through the map here quickly. So first off, we do have an application that is in progress. That is for Quality Oil, which is looking at the site here near Evolve Drive on Highway 50. So that is a proposal. It does require a rezoning though, so that would be coming to you for a final decision.
Yes.
And that will be proposal is for a convenience store with fuel sales.
And that's beside the Bojangles, so if people can go on a quick location finder, that's where it is.
Exactly.
The Evolve 50 restaurant is Bojangles.
Yes,
Whereas
that's the
beam, or is
Bojangles.
it painting on the beam is Bow Time.
That is very
Good
correct.
advertising.
Then this one is one that I know that we have mentioned before, but I think it may have taken maybe a slightly different form than when you first looked at it. That is the Weston Road subdivision by Habitat. I know at one point it was a certain type of single-family home. Now they are looking at semi-attached townhomes, which are very similar to this kind of paired home product where they usually have like a utility building or a utility room that is attached in the back, and it's those utility rooms that share a wall, but then there's two independent units on either side. So they continue to look at different models, what they think that they can produce affordably for folks. So would definitely encourage you to take a fresh look at that if you have not looked at it recently. The next one on the list is also a rezoning that would be coming to you for final approval. That is our Project Cougar site here out on South Greenfield Parkway. That is a Tier 1 rezoning, so I'm not exactly sure how much information is going to be associated with that. But again, located here off of South Greenfield and Highway 70. And then, as Manager Miller was mentioning, drones potentially at Amazon. You should be able to find that here off of Jones Sausage Road, a special use permit amendment, because that's how it was approved originally, for the addition of aviation and freight service. This would, as I understand it, be taking the place of a portion of their parking field to the south of the main building. They would repurpose some of that. North Garner Middle School, I know we've talked about that one before, but it is in here just as a reminder. That is a tear down and reconstruction of that site. Again, that is a special use permit process, so that will be coming to you with the site plan attached to it as well.
Can I ask a question on this, Mr. Treasenberg? When they do that, where will those students be assigned?
I don't know that I have heard.
I didn't know if the location up there behind Garner Town Square Shopping Center, I don't think that's big enough. I don't know if that's big enough. I know that's where they've had some elementary schools when they have torn down, but I don't know if that's big enough.
Yeah,
We can confirm
Yeah,
with
we'll
school
confirm that for
services
sure.
and follow up with you on that, Mr. Singleton.
Just curious where they're going to go. Since
Yeah,
there's
no.
not any other middle school nearby except East Garner.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I can only recall certain elementary schools at the other site.
Yeah, a couple have been there.
Yeah, but I don't know if maybe obviously there's more grades in the elementary. It might fit, but we'll inquire and find out.
Curious.
Okay. Bethel Green is a project, of course, that you're familiar with. It does need to come back through subdivision approval. At this time, that also may include a special use permit, but the most recent subdivision plans following rezoning should now be available here. Again, this is on the south side of New Bethel Church Road. Thompson Townhomes is a project we may have mentioned before. That is located here off of Old Stage Road, adjacent to the Rollman Farms Townhome subdivision. I believe the property owners may be discussing with the current builder at Rollman Farms about possibly extending their construction to this site, or they may be talking to someone completely separate. I'm not sure. But this would be, again, a townhome project that may also need a rezoning. I will check on that. But right now we do have their they do have a subdivision plan in place.
And that goes to the intersection of Vandal Springs and All Stage Road.
Yes, it does. Yep.
I remember years ago they told us no one could build anything there because of the beavers. They dammed everything up, but obviously that must have changed.
Yeah, there is. There's been some confusion over this tract of land in the past, just in how they deeded a conservation easement on it and then how it was mapped. So yeah, this area right to the west of that site is the conservation area. And I think at one time it kind of almost looked like the whole parcel was a conservation easement. But there were pieces both to the east here along Old Stage and then a piece that actually backs up to the Swift Creek kind of, what was the old, I forget the names.
The old subdivision,
Yeah.
that's changed names 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, 2 or 3 times. But there's a piece there that backs up to that subdivision as well. That is buildable.
And years ago, there was a grocery store approved to be right there.
Yes, just
time
to the
ago.
south was supposed to be
Scotty Wilson used to live there.
the Food Lion site, which is now owned by Wake County.
Right.
Yes.
So I have a question. How does the southern part of that parcel align with, is that Pandora Springs Road?
Yes.
How does that align with the mythical
Yeah.
Pandora Springs extension?
Yes, the extension was actually, the land for that extension was actually built into the old Food Lion parcel. So it literally would run theoretically right adjacent to the south side of this.
They'd have to
piece.
make that improvement?
If they are accessing it, yes. I know that we can get the right of way if there's any need for right of way on their parcel. But if they're not accessing it, then we don't have a trigger to require the construction.
Noted.
Yes. Because the road area is on the old Food Lion parcel, if that were to develop and trigger the right threshold, they would have to build it. But I know that in talking with Wake County, some of the uses that they're looking at are more like trailhead and things.
So do
that
we
would
need to
not
take that
necessarily-
Pandora Road extension out of our transportation plan?
That's something that we continue to discuss with Campo. It's still just it's a very desirable connection from a traffic standpoint. They certainly acknowledge the difficulties in today's funding environment, but it's not something that anybody yet has wanted to formally drop.
But the extension would go into another subdivision. Wouldn't it go through that southern part of that subdivision that was approved? So, because it's all built on one side or something.
Right, that apartment project with the mixed-use building
Yeah.
and the little tap room potentially
Yeah.
kind of building at the front. Yes, it would go along the southern edge of that.
So what are they even building out as part of that extension? They're not building a 4-lane.
Not 4-lane, but it is 3-lane,
It's a
2-lane
3-lane.
divided.
Oh, so they're doing a
Yeah.
full 3-lane with the whole length of the
Yeah.
proper. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
all right, keep it in. We'll see what happens.
Keeping the option open. The next one, we are working with Alex as to how best to show this on the map. Currently, the larger kind of the access roads, it's called E-District roadway design. They're having to, construct 2 new roads, one east-west, and then a piece of the future Jones Sausage extension over here. Currently, those plans are kind of wrapped in with the Wake Med proposal, but it really is a separate project because when those roads are built, you're actually subdividing the property. And these other 2 projects, both the Wake Med and the Timbered Drive East mixed use, are set up more as site plans. So there will be kind of a separating out of just the road improvements as a subdivision project. So you will see some updates to the map related to that, but just understand that really that subdivision is just about the road construction and creating the bigger parcels. And then the mixed use and the Wake Med will start to make more sense as a site plan because they actually will have their own parcel.
So the White Oak Ridge project, would this whole thing be one project?
Yes. They
For all
are, they
that
are
road
incorporating,
improvements?
they are
Okay.
working with that to make the whole thing happen.
Okay.
Yep. Cardinal Machine Shop is just a industrial project site plan here in Greenfield Parkway. So just understand that that is there, but that's just another kind of traditional industrial use, has current zoning in place, and will go through a staff review and approval. Kind of at the other end of Greenfield Parkway, we now have what's called Project LIP. I'm not really sure where that comes from. The Light Industrial Project, I guess, is probably what they named it. This originally had an approval for a site for Gregory Pool. They have kind of changed their plans, so now this site is being flipped, and there's now a new industrial user that's going to be looking at this site. Currently, it is a grading permit. I will say, when folks see grading permit, they may think, just grading from corner to corner. We do still require that they do meet all of the landscaping and tree preservation requirements as they are. If they choose to go that route, it's not a way for an applicant to skirt those rules, so they will have to think about some of that stuff in advance, but they did want to go ahead and get started with grading, and we have, through a site plan process, they can do that as long as their plans do show stabilization and take care of all the necessary landscaping requirements as is. So they have to maintain compliance at all times. And then recently approved, just so everyone is aware, I know this project got off to a little bit of an unsteady start, but here at Garner Auto Repair on West Garner Road, we have reviewed their site plans, and they have been approved. And you probably will have noticed construction activity if you drive by there taking place again within the last week or two. And so that's the updates we have for you this time, and it should be probably a much shorter list going forward.
I have a question. I saw a very fun-looking project. What is this? What's it called right there? Wilmington Road Mixed Use. Application in progress. Yes, right there, north of Jurgen Park and next to JC Commerce Park and Industrial and North Garner. This is very interesting. Please share this project with us.
So this is one that we just had a pre-app for, so it did not make it into the memo, but it would be on next month. But
can we see this site plan? This is very exciting.
So this, I'm not sure exactly what. Oh, they did provide something more. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is older.
What's the new one look like?
A different project. This one is not one that I think we have seen move forward. This is one that we had a pre-app on quite a while ago, and it apparently they have not moved forward yet to actually submitting a complete package for anything. But this was their first sketch at which they sat down with staff and got initial input.
It's good for us to see the stuff you guys see first, because this is amazing.
Yeah. So if they don't move forward within the next few months, probably this will come off the map.
So for this type of thing that we're looking at right here, what was their idea for access roads and thresholds, given that North Garner, what's that North Garner Park project called? I have a mental block on.
Village at Garner Station.
Village at Garner Station. So it's like, there are only 2 access roads out of there.
Yes. And that was a major point of discussion during that pre-app.
Okay.
We talked a lot about whether or not there's access here to, I think it's maybe Cook or Arlene. It's one of those. Or also potentially carrying across, the creek to get out to Wilmington. There were all sorts of, but the big thing is that there are limitations. You need to be aware of these and need to be thinking about how you can potentially solve them or readjust your concept to something that would work.
And Mr. Dellinger, you may notice just about where Jeff's cursor is, there's a stub shown, and that was stubbing into the northern portion of Village at Garner Station. So that little triangular sort of shaped piece that stubs to is the northernmost portion of their project.
Right.
So I believe what they were sort of envisioning was building on the west side of their property there, sort of an extension of the back of the uses there, and on the eastern portion, building sort of something that would be in alignment with the other uses on Wilmington. So again, staff provided feedback about what we observed with that, and we've not seen them come back, but that's sort of, I think, their initial thought process, and we'll be curious to see if anything comes back.
Thank you.
Yeah, good example though of some of the things that we see that potentially don't ever make it anywhere. Yeah.
And I think we also mentioned one of these lives of this project was the concern about going out to Wilmington, but it would allow access to the other projects. So you could be inviting tractor trailer traffic up and down Creech Road.
Yeah.
And that's just, that's like collateral damage there. So
Yeah.
anyway, we were doing a lot of the Creech Road talk about how it could connect. And if you open up the warehouse to that as a connector road, the dangerous precedent you're setting. But anyway, on a road that's not going to be improved anytime soon, Creech Road. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And that's all I have for you tonight.
That's all, that's a lot.
Yes. Future months, we promise, will be shorter.
Excellent, thank you very much. It's always enlightening to get this stuff. We need to be paying attention to all of these things. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Mr. Triesenberg. Council, those are all the manager reports for this evening.
And I believe that brings us to attorney reports.
No report this evening.
No report. Then that brings us to council reports. And let's start with Mr. Vance.
Yes, I'd like to say that the Human Resource Committee will meet we'll have interviews tomorrow for the various openings that are coming before us, and hopefully, if we are successful, we'll have recommendations for consideration for the council at the coming meetings.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dellinger, reports.
No reports this evening.
Ms. Behringer, I'm not skipping you again. Any reports?
Okay. Well, I may be out of town and on vacation, but people are still messaging me, and I got quite a few questions today about someone taking pictures of the drainage pipes on Penny Street and wanting to know what was going on. They were primarily taking pictures, I believe, of driveway pipes. Not every property has a driveway pipe, but they wanted to know if I could find out what was going on. This individual was not driving an official town car, but stopped in several places and took pictures. So do we have any information?
Sure, I can speak to that. Ms. Behringer, that is part of our stormwater inventory and assessment that's ongoing. So that would be our consultant. Stewart is the survey subconsultant, and then CDM Smith is the consultant doing the work. We met with them today, actually, and just talked about that. Penny Street was one of the areas that we asked them to pay a little bit of extra attention to, beyond just looking at the condition of the assets, because we know that there are some concerns with drainage in that area. So they're taking a look at what remedies may be, what issues there might be and what remedies they might have. So they're just gathering information, and we should have some of that information back within the next couple of months to potentially identify any projects if needed.
Well, they will be happy to hear they're getting some attention. Thank you, Leah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Behringer?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Singleton.
Yes, I was gonna, I know Mr. Matthews will touch on this. Even though it was wet again, another very successful Memorial Day event. It's nice to see people come out, young and old alike. Got some news coverage that Mr. Mercer put on, showed us. Also, saw a video on the news, also heard it on the radio. You may have heard it on the radio too, that played a news story. So good positive press from not only the Garner Memorial Day event, but other Memorial Day events around the area. So that's always positive to see. But anyway, well done, Mr. Matthews and the Veterans Committee did a good job. And maybe one day we'll get some dry weather up there like we've had. This is 3 years in a row, I believe, 3 years running that it's been wet that day. So anyway, successful event and good to see people come out.
That was a fantastic event, and rest assured, Mr. Singleton, I've already issued the proclamation that the sun will shine on that day next year.
We could use all the help we could get.
Maybe you can get your friend to
wanna
grandma
see
to come
that.
down. And that he'll help.
Hey, we'll bring Snurt out there, make sure.
Maybe it'll be sunny that day.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews.
Just tagging what Greg was just saying, it was a great event and a lot of people were involved, from the Public Works to Parks and Rec, and we had an early start, and we weren't quite sure, but we had a Plan B, and Plan B went right into action. So a great turnout and so many young people, that really took me back, and it was great to see that. And so many people were touring the memorial all afternoon, as a matter of fact. I've driven through there 2 or 3 times, and so we've got a lot to be proud out there that the town has done. And so Marie, thanks for all your staff to get things going. It was good to see everybody out there, from the attorney to the manager and all of us up here. So thanks again. It was a good one. And like we said, maybe next year it'll be dry. I know Veterans Day will be dry because we'll be inside Aversboro Church. So we do have a good committee, and we thank you for your support.
It was a great event indeed. So that covers our agenda up to this point. I think we have a closed session on the agenda, and we probably need a special motion for that to happen.
Yes, the citation would be North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-318.11A6, to discuss the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, or conditions of appointment, or conditions of initial employment of an individual public officer or employee, or prospective public officer or employee, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against an individual public officer or employee.
So move on said motion, on said citation.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, a motion by Mr. Vance, a second by Mr. Singleton. I think we can take a voice vote on this. All in favor of moving to the closed session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Passes unanimously. Let's move to a closed session. Thank you all for coming. Stick around. We'll be back soon. Welcome back as we return to the open session. I'm going to call on our town attorney to give us a summary of what was discussed and what, if any, action was taken.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council met in closed session to discuss performance issues and corrective processes. No official votes were taken other than to allow Ms. Behringer to be excused from the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you very much. That being said, I'm not aware of any other items we need to discuss. I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Vance and a second by Mr. Matthews. All in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Is it still raining out?
Yes, sir.